Hi everybody, welcome to the Spin That Shutdown Showdown episode 9. Wow, we've come a little ways here now. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about recorded sound, how it started from the beginning on vinyl. So, first of all, we're going to start off by Thomas Edison. He's actually the very first one who had able to record something and had it played back. He recorded actually Mary Had a Little Lamb, first thing recorded. And he actually used a cylinder with tin around it and recorded on there, and then after that they came up with this method here, which is actually a wax cylinder. So little side note, I heard a lot of people call vinyl wax. Why is that? Well, this is why. I started on wax cylinders like this. It was on a player with a horn, and it would just play this way across. It spun around, and as it spun around, it'll read the grooves and then reproduce, and it actually could have blank one of these. You could record your own sound. Thomas Edison did not start off wanting to put music on. He actually was trying to replace the typewriter at the time. It was a way to have sending recorded messages, but that didn't work out so well. Recorded music, that actually what we listen to now. So it went from doing this to then we came up with the flat disc design. It was him and other people actually working on that time, but this is Edison's, what he started off with, the flat disc. So first was this material here. Actually, before this was actually rubber. There was actually a little period in between here and here where they made the disc out of rubber, but that wasn't working out, so they changed to this acetate. This method here, which is what was used throughout the time. And so we did the first ones here, etched labels, kind of the early example. He actually made his records a little thicker, and he also had what was exclusive artists, so you only listen to these artists on Edison discs, which he's trying to, control the market. This Edison did with a lot. I think it made them thicker, so only played on Edison players. A couple other people came out with the Edisons, like Edison came out with record players at that time, so he wanted to keep his exclusive. So he went from that. He actually later on sort of way, I guess, to save money, just put in a label and not do the etching. Maybe this was cheaper, I don't know. So this is kind of the first early examples. Then other equipment manufacturers started making them. As you see, this is a later, and these are all a 78 speed. That's why they call these 78. So 10-inch records mostly. There was 12-inch versions of these, but not a lot of them were sold or made because you had to use a bigger spring on the machine that turned. It was like a hand crank. You put it on there, you drop the needle. We've all seen these in cartoons or maybe movies and things like that, but it was a needle that went across here, horn, spun a 78. The spring size was made to play on a 10-inch record, maybe get both sides out of one turn. But there were 12-inch versions of these, but you had to get a more expensive machine with a bigger spring that will last the 12-inch size and cross. So that's kind of why they were 10-inch, because the limitations of the spring that was used to turn the needle around. So we talked a little about how to keep these clean and why we can't use alcohol in this because the material that it was made out of, use soap and water. So one of the early versions after that came out with this here. This is an example of an early 10-inch record that we'll call long play records, LPs. That's what LP kind of does stand for long play, because you get more than one song on here. You have one song only on each side here, and this actually was a matter of recording and get more than one. So as you can see, kind of a little separation there, so you can actually record more. And these were done at 33 speed, so they slowed it down and be able to reproduce the sound. And so let's side note, Firehouse 5. Louis Armstrong started with Firehouse 5. He actually played with them. I don't know if he 100% started with them, but he did play with them. He's not on this recording. But so this is kind of the LP. Find the first example was also, they kept the size 10-inch, and early turntables had the speed for 78. So if you had still 78 you wanted to play at home, that's kind of, they kept the speed on that. After that, the 78 speed phased out. Also during this era, they came up with the 45, which played one song, and also they had an EP version like this one that played like 2 or 3 songs per side, and this spins at 45 RPMs. So this one has the adapter, and this one here has the big hole. The reason they had these big holes because the early 45 players made by a company like RCA, they had one, had a big spindle on there that had to accommodate this size. So they kind of all continue making this side because it was an adapter. That adapter as being an extra piece of equipment that you added to your stereo to play 45s, and had the big spindle here. So that's why they made them like this in the beginning, is because the first machines that played these had this big giant spindle. So that's kind of why they did that. So from there we went to the 12-inch version, where this one here is actually an example. Also, we talked a little bit about, you know, band covers and change. This is one of the covers were changed because maybe about a week after they released this, Lynyrd Skynyrd suffered a plane crash in where they lost a couple of band members, notably the lead singer Ronnie Van Zant and Steve Gaines, which is this guy here. So this is kind of was considered in poor taste because of the fire and everything involved with it. Plane crash, so they changed this cover out and replaced it with a cover that looks just like this. That's just the front cover now after this. So this kind of talks a little bit to what we were talking about earlier. And then from here we continue making 12 inches. This is a newer pressing of a record, with a lot of people now pressing records on 180 gram vinyls. They figured with the 180 grams, well, it gives you a deeper groove and a heavier record and a deeper groove, so better play quality. That's one of the 180 grams reason they're doing 180 grams today. There was an era during the 70s also where the oil shortage was low, and they made these really thin flexi records because the plastic for making this is made from oil. So there was an era with that during the early 70s, during the oil embargoes, that they made the records where they were really thin and flexible. They came out with what they called Dynaflex. So it's kind of a little bit of history here of recorded sound and how it came along. This is kind of turn of the century. This is through the 1920s into post-war, and then kind of early 50s. This is kind of what this started coming out, and it continued on, and to today, to right here. Kind of a little timeline there. Also, support your local musicians. A lot of guys, like gig guys out there, they're not making much money now because they're not being out there to perform, do concerts. A lot of their income actually comes from concerts, things like that, because of the current situation. No concerts, obviously, which is a great thing, and keeping people at home. But a lot of these musicians, a lot of their income comes from doing concerts. So if you can, go out there, support these guys. There's a lot of people doing videos with tip jars through PayPal, or just buy their music off Bandcamp, or whatever you can do if you can. Definitely support your local artists and musicians that you love, and hopefully we'll get through this and we'll continue to enjoy this great music. Thank you, and we'll talk tomorrow.